You're watching The Luke Bryan Show.
All right. So, Brian, one of the things you and I, well, we both love country music, and the Luke Bryan Show is really named after one of our favorite country artists. But you know what? How am I going to tie this in? You're probably wondering right now. So, Brian had this love for country music, which he has now conveyed to me, and now I love country music. But Brian learned to love country music when he was down in college in the States, and so I'm going to tie this into kind of one of our core values through this circuitous reasoning.
I love how I learned so many things from you, and you learned from me country music and having a beard. These are the things you learn from me. It's good.
Well, those are some of the best parts of my life. So competence is one of our core values, and what does that mean? We want to be great travelers. We want to just be at the very top of our field, or near as close to the top as you can be. And you and I have both had just a ton of success in the courtroom. But you growing up, I mean, learning excellence and learning how to be really good at something, and so baseball was a real passion of yours. So talk a bit about that and kind of what that looked like for you.
Yeah, I mean, they all kind of flow together. So you have the hard work, obviously, and the commitment to that is something, you can't have one without the other. I don't think you can be excellent at what you do without putting the time in. And so with baseball, yeah, I don't know how far back you want me to go, but baseball for me was something that I always enjoyed, and started out quite young, and then probably wasn't until I was 12 or 13. And I remember my friends were playing ball, and I wasn't sure whether I wanted to play or not play anymore. And my dad had been pushing me pretty hard because he thought I was pretty good, and so he kept pushing me to play in my. I remember thinking that it was his dream, not my dream, to be a baseball player. And I remember telling him, I don't want to play anymore. And I wasn't sure how he would take it. And he was super supportive, which was, very odd to me. But he was like, "Sure, son, whatever makes you happy." And so I didn't play. And then much to my surprise, I was very unhappy not playing that summer with everyone else, all my friends playing, and all stars. And the next year I came back with a vengeance, and I worked so hard. I was the first one on the field, the last one off the field, and soaked up as much as I could, and got really good at that point, and ended up playing professionally for a period of time, and played down in the States a lot. So back to your country, I played in Oklahoma, also played in Baltimore. But my time in Oklahoma, I'd say, is probably some of the most memorable. I played for a team called Seminole State. They were, at the time, the winningest junior college in the nation. So there's over 400 teams, and they had the highest record. I think they were over 80% win rate. Their commitment to excellence was awesome, and such a. You'd get up at 4 a.m. and you'd go run and do workouts that only 1% of the world could do. And, then you'd go to class and you'd work out again, and then you'd play baseball all day, all night. And, it was something.
One of the stories you've told me about that experience, and I'm not sure if it was at Seminole State or one of the other schools, was is looking to the guy beside you and what your coach talked. And I think that, to me, and it's more about the collaboration piece with us, but it's a big part, I think, of you and our story is like, just being there for each other. Talk a bit about that story.
Yeah, so when I talk about doing the workouts that, less than 1% of the world can do, our entire team could do them. And so everyone was worked really hard physically. And one of the workouts that we did is they would have us do these 9-5s. So you'd have to do a bunch of running and undertimed. And at the end of it, you'd do these ridiculous workouts. And one of them was this Superman pose, or these planks or whatever. And the coach would always tell us, if you're thinking about quitting, look to your left and look to your right. And a lot of the reason, you're sitting there going, man, I want to give up, or I don't want to push through this. And you look over and they're looking at you for strength, and you're looking at them for strength, and they don't know that you're looking at them for strength and that they're looking at you. And so you're kind of stronger together. And a lot of it is that team and that collaboration to push through and work harder. Yeah, and I remember there was a poem that they always had for us, and we had to say it each day, but I'll probably butcher it now. It's probably been 20 years since I've said it, but it was, this is the beginning of a new day, and I've been given this day to use as I will, and I can use it for good, or I can waste it. And what what I do today is important because I'm exchanging a day of my life for it. And when tomorrow comes, today will be gone forever, having on its place whatever I've traded for it. I pledge to myself that it will be good, not evil, success, not failure, so that I shall not regret the price that I paid for this day. And so it was every day working and making sure that you put that time in. And yeah, he didn't regret the price that you paid for that day.
Yeah, and so some of the success you had, I think you went to the World Series of Baseball for junior college, and
yeah, we finished third in the Junior College World Series that year.
And how many teams in the country?
Yeah, so it would have been over 400 teams at the time. Yeah. You play in the regionals and the super regionals, and you eventually make your way to the World Series, which was held in Grand Junction, Colorado. That was quite an interesting experience.
How many people did you play in front of there?
I think they said there was like 60,000 or something. Yeah, so it was not quite as big as some of the big sporting arenas, but yeah, it was the most amount of people I've ever played in front of for sure, and it's quite nerve-wracking. And so being on that field is, you kind of forget it all and forget that it's all there.
And I think you've said a number of your teammates got drafted into the major leagues and played.
Yeah, basically the entire starting lineup got drafted. I wasn't part of the starting lineup, so I didn't get drafted. Yeah. But I did end up playing professionally for a short period of time for the Canadian Baseball League. I played for about 6 months. I was the youngest player on the professional team at the time. Yeah, and just incredible ball players on that team as well. And again, the commitment to excellence and training. I remember at the time the coach didn't like my swing, and so trying to unlearn a swing and relearn a swing was a lot of work. But you put in the time and you put in the work, and the results come from it.
Yeah, and one of I think the things that has translated into law and that is, I think of, an experience you and I had last year. I was in a trial, and one of the lawyers on my team was having a tough time, and you stepped up, and it was the night, the day before closing argument was to be delivered, and you stepped up and stayed up most of the night to help me finish that closing argument, and that, I think about that in terms of the culture and the taking care of each other and how powerful that is, and how that's translated into the culture of a law firm from the culture of baseball or hockey that I played.
Yeah, so we have a saying, and it's leave it all in the field, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what it's all about for me, is knowing that if I put in everything that I have and I give it everything I have, and know that if I'm giving it more than I think most people will give it, and I leave it all in the field, that win, lose or draw, the client got the best representation that they can. And the best part about leaving it all in the field is and the collaboration piece is that it's not just me leaving it all in the field, but it's all of us leaving it all in the field. And so in that situation, it was you putting in everything you have, but then also having the extra horsepower of other people on the firm stepping up and being able to help out and leave everything they have on the field, and knowing that they're not quitting because you're not quitting, and looking to the left and looking to the right. But you also had a lot of connection with sports growing up. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and how that's played into your competency.
Yeah, I think for me, sports was a huge part of my upbringing, and for me, it was a lot of hockey, skiing. Probably did almost every water sport you can imagine. Was a lifeguard, swam competitively, but just loved being active, and I'm always on the go kind of person. So it's, but what I loved most about hockey, and I reffed and I coached and I played and played well into my adult years. What I loved the most was that team piece, and there's such a powerful feeling for me of having success together and working hard for that success and battling through adversity. And that's one thing that just translates directly into what we do is that adversity piece. Like our everyday is fighting our clients' adversity and standing up for them in a very intense arena. The beginning of law is so challenging. Is you're a junior lawyer, you walk in a courtroom. So if you're in a situation where your client's there, the other lawyer's trying to make you look bad. The judge might have no patience for you. They don't.
If you don't have gray hair, yeah.
Exactly. They don't care that you're a junior lawyer. It doesn't matter to them. Your client's sitting there. They're paying you, and if you don't perform, they're going to be down your throat. So it's such an intense environment, and I think that tying that into the team thing is like when we send our young lawyers into court, we back them in every way we can. You ultimately have to get there yourself, but it's providing the support and a supportive environment at work and giving them the tools so they can be successful in that environment. That's a big part of what I learned in playing a lot of sports was every team member is important. and everyone's contribution is important. And really, you're only going to be as successful as you are together. And leaving people behind isn't a viable option on a good team. And to me, it's really it's having that success together as a group, and that really means a lot to me.
So with that commitment to excellent piece, I mean, the competency, I mean, obviously working together and the collaboration and the hard work is all a part of it, but what about the competency piece specifically?
Yeah, and so that's something that matters a lot to me, and that only comes one way. It comes through hard work. You can be the smartest person in law school and not succeed as a lawyer. I think that for me, that's always been a hallmark of my life, and I think yours too. My first job was 6 years old picking berries, and I remember I picked berries every year till I was 13 or 14, and all the money from picking berries went to pay my hockey registration. I never saw a penny of it, and then I got a paper out when I was 13, and I was in this rural area. I had 20 papers, and it was 7 miles, and I lived on a mountainside, so I rode my bike up the mountain every day. I think it was like an hour to deliver 20 papers, and I made about $50 a month doing that. When I worked back the math on that, it's like $1 an hour or something ridiculous. But hard work has always been a part of my life. I worked in really hard jobs going through school and supported myself through school, and my wife helped support me a lot too. But hard work is to me is a hallmark of being successful as a lawyer, and you just can't get through the hardship of learning the skill. The analogy you and I have talked a lot about is it's like climbing Mount Everest, and two things you need to climb Mount Everest. One, you need the ability to do it yourself, and just
you need the route,
the determination. But yeah, you need someone to guide you up the mountain too, right? And so it's that
tell you not to step in the Hillary step.
Exactly. Yeah, you need the Sherpa, right?
Yeah.
Someone who's gonna take you the right route up that mountain. And so the law's a lot like that. And I think a lot of people guided me up that mountain, and you and I are now guiding other people up the mountain, and that to me is super rewarding, and is really that team piece and the thing that I've translated from playing all the team sports into the law firm.
Yeah, well, I mean, the most apt example I can give from baseball is, I worked hard, and, we had a lot of coaches that put in a bunch of time, but they were, dads or whatever. They weren't professionals or hadn't gone through all the training. And then, when I started to play professionally and some of those higher leagues and levels, and the coaches had played professionally and just had so much, not more to offer. I mean, I think, the dads obviously put in all their time, but had a lot more knowledge, and how much better you can get in a short period of time when you have that sort of guidance and that mentorship. And, we talk about standing on the shoulders of giants and not recreating the wheel, and all of those types of things is, quite staggering. And, being able to be in a law firm where you're surrounded by excellence, and everyone that can throw down the ladder and tell you where not to step and guide you up that mountain, you can certainly climb a lot faster, rather than, making mistakes and learning from them and then trying to learn the next one and making mistakes and learning from them. You can kind of avoid a lot of those mistakes by knowing what the right spot to step is. And that's been obviously very helpful for me in my career, is knowing where not to step.
One of the other pieces around that is just the in terms of the commitment and the competency is just it's the adversity piece, and I think adversity is often life defining for people, and how we deal with it. And you and I have both had various adversities in our lives, and I think that a big part of what we do in terms of, I guess, the hard parts of law is that adversity, overcoming that adversity and the resilience. And so one of the things you went through is the end of your baseball career, bring it back to that, was like suffered a pretty significant injury and lost that. So talk a bit about the loss of baseball and what that meant to you, and then how that experiencing that adversity and getting through it has made you a stronger person now.
Yeah, good questions. Yeah, so I had a pretty serious back injury, a sciatica injury, and bunch of inflamed vertebrae and was on a couch for a long period of time and wasn't able to really get back into baseball despite trying numerous times. Never quite let it heal up, but kept making these teams. So would push myself, and the doc was like, hey, you're about 90%, you're not quite there. And I'd be like, oh, I'm good enough, and you kind of go in and one real-time game swing and you collapse on the ground. And it was very frustrating. So at the time I was in the best shape that I'd ever been in and probably ever will be again. And, you're in your late teens, early 20s, and your body gives up on you. And, it's a frustrating thing. And so had to kind of reset and figure out where you wanted to go from there. And so I was always good at school and I was a student athlete, and I was like, well, hopefully my brain won't give out on me. And, when my body does. So went back to school and really kind of focused on that. And just hit the reset button. I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and that obviously didn't work out. And then landed in the legal sphere for a number of different reasons. And I just really kind of had to reassess what's important to me and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to get out of life and what I wanted to leave behind. And that's really what drove me and pushed me to be where I am today, for sure.
Yeah, and so in terms of what we do now, how has that helped you in terms of that experience of going through that adversity and overcoming it? Talk a bit about, the translation of that into law and as specifically as it relates to, I think it's a big part of the commitment piece. It's working through those, those real hard times.
Yeah, they're tools in your belt, ultimately, is the way I like to think about it. Is, you go through those adversities and you find your way through them, and you put that tool in your belt again. And then throughout life, there's going to be more adversities, and there's things that you're going to go through in difficult times. And knowing that you've already been through them and you've picked yourself up and you've dusted yourself off and you've pushed through those is something where you go, okay, well, I've done it once, I can do it again. And then, you've done it again, and then you're like, okay, I can do it. I've done it twice, I can do it 3 times. And then it just becomes a confidence builder, and you know that you can do it, and that sort of confidence in yourself is something that takes a long time and a lifetime really to build, but you just kind of do it by pushing through and getting there again and again and again. And some of the scariest times I ever had was those first times in a courtroom, knowing that you have somebody's life in your hands. It's for them, it's everything. For you, it's a few days in a courtroom, and win, lose, or draw, you can go back to your life. But for them, whatever decision the judge makes is the final decision. And so, it's a lot of weight. It's a lot of weight. And so, it's scary, and you don't think you can do it. And I actually remember the first time it happened to me. I was in my articles, and I had a case. It was an application, and I remember the client. She was the sweetest old woman, and she had balance issues, and she had undergone some testing, and the testing really broke her, and there was no way she could go through it again. And so I was like very passionate about it and didn't want her to go through it again, but the law wasn't very supportive of me, and so I was having a difficult time trying to find a way through to stop the defense from getting their own independent examination that would have had more testing. And I remember it was an assignment that you had given to me, and I remember being there. It was Saturday night. You gave it to me early in the week, and I've been working on it all week. And it was Saturday night, and I remember being there late going, I can't do this. And it was the first time in my career, and the last time, that I thought I actually couldn't do it. And the only reason I pushed through it was because you'd given it to me, and I knew that you wouldn't give me something that you didn't think that I could succeed at or do a good job at. And so it was your confidence and faith in me that made me not finish that email and send it to you saying, Luke, I can't do this. You need to do the application on Monday. And instead I buckled down, pushed through the adversity, and worked all day Sunday and got an early Monday, and was successful on the application Monday morning, and managed to keep her out of having to go through that testing again. And and that's, I've done a lot more difficult things since then in law, but for me, that was the tool that I put in my belt, saying, if Luke trusts me or somebody else trusts me to do this, that I can do this and go through it. And so that's something that has pushed us, I think, in our careers, but also with how we mentor and the firm that we have, is we don't want to put people in a position to fail, and make sure that they have the ability to succeed and that they have the skills to succeed. And that's definitely talk about the tools and putting them in your belt and overcoming adversity, and that's the memory that stands out the most for me.
That's a great story. One of the stories that I thought about when you were telling your last story was just we have this tradition of when we have a trial, we usually have a trial song, and we've gone through a number of trial songs, and the one that keeps coming back though is the 8 Mile Eminem, and there's one line in that song, and it's just so powerful, and I every time I do a trial now, I listen to it on the way to the courtroom, and it's like you've got one chance, one opportunity, and you and I talk about this. It's that you're the client's life, and it's just they've got one chance, and you're the only line of defense for them in that courtroom, and you're the one protecting them and making sure their voice is heard and justice is achieved, and that's so powerful. It's that knowing that this is the only shot there is.
I don't think it's unique to you or me. I think there's a lot of lawyers like this, but taking that ownership of it and understanding the magnitude of what's happening, and understanding the gravity of the situation and what happens if we fail, know, and taking that on, I know is something that drives me and drives you and drives all of us to, it's not just we're collecting a paycheck and we're going home, right? It's we're committed to trying to make a difference in this person's life. And if we're not successful, there's some significant negative impacts of that.
You're watching The Luke Bryan Show.